Sitting right here, Walt Raymond. Now, Walt was a starter, starting quarterback, 58, 59, and 60. And, you know, Walt had excuse me while I noticed. Walt had a quiet, soothing personality. He didn't speak much. When he spoke, everybody listened. I remember that. So when Tom and Walt left, graduated, went on to Cal, everybody said, can he do it? And they were referring to Jim. Well, he'd already proved himself in the other sports. We know that he was a great athlete. But the one thing I remember Coach Davis worrying about was the personality. He said to me one day, how do you think Jim's going to do? Do you think he could tone it down a little bit? I don't really remember what I said, but I'm going to say, yes, he can do it, to cover myself. So there were about 3 articles in the first 3, a couple before the season started and a couple during the first 3 games, and it kept referring to Tom and Walt. Tom and Walt. Are they going to be able to carry on the tradition? Well, after about the 3rd game, yes. And the other thing I remember Coach Davis saying to the team, always control your outlets. Control your outlets. In other words, save your energy for the game. Well, after about the 3rd game, he came and we had a meeting. He said, I don't care what you do what you do. And he turned around and walked out of the room. He wasn't going to try to change the personality of that team. Now, remember, Jim really was quarterback for one season, his senior year as a starter. Well, that year, he threw for 964 yards of his 1,117 yards passing during his career. And the 1,117 is the 3rd all-time. And that's pretty good for not starting but 1 year. His completion percentage of 61.5% is still a school record. His 20 touchdown passes is 5th most in St. Helena High School history. And in 1962, his senior year, he ranked 2nd behind Walt. He also ran a lot, probably because we didn't block very well. But look at the stats that he got. 927 yards rushing, 7.5 yards per carry, and 19 touchdowns. Holy mackerel. I mean, I had to ask him, wait a minute, you threw for 20 touchdowns and you ran it for 19 touchdowns. He says, yeah, but I checked these right. I didn't believe him. And in his running ability, there was one game that I saw looking at his scrapbook was he ran for 98 yards against Clear Lake on October 27th, 1961. And it was a record at the time for the longest run. Pretty good. How many years ago was that? 53, 54? 2,044 total offensive yards, 14.2 yards per play, and 19 touchdowns. 2,145 all-purpose yards. That's 15.8 yards per play. No wonder St. Helena did lose a game. I mean, in the first quarter or the second quarter, boom. He was all league, all North Coast, and was elected to go to the Redwood Empire All-Star game. There was one article to make the point about can he do it, and the bad boy kind of comes together here. Our first game, our senior year, was against Dixon. And it said in the article that towards the end of the second quarter, Jim Hunt got in a rhubarb with a guy from the other team, and they both got kicked out. Bad boy.
Bad boy.
I don't know if he did that on purpose to show everybody that he could handle it himself, but it left some memory in my mind. I don't remember that. Well, Johns came in and finished the game. We won it. What did Jim do after graduated from St. Helena High School? That's kind of what is, I think, important to know. He went to the University of California. He was a 3-year varsity letterman. He tied the school record for interceptions in 1964. Now, I say just interceptions because I had heard that he led the nation in interceptions, and I figured he was a quarterback. He wasn't very good. Well, he was a two-way player. This was 7 defensive interceptions in 1964, the second most in the nation. He was a starting quarterback in 1965. So from the University of California, Jim went back east to Berkshire Christian College near Brookline, Mass. I'm not going to try to say Massachusetts. where he played basketball. And there was an article in the paper about him coming to the school. So a high school coach contacted him and said, hey, would you like to come help coach the high school football team? And he said, of course. He became an assistant coach at Lenox and Bordertown High School, and he was there from 1966 to 1972. And he told me that he didn't really know what he wanted to be when he grew up. But when he got out on that football field with those kids, he had an epiphany. He knew then that he wanted to be a coach and a teacher. So he left, he got his degree he left and went to Tufts University to get his graduate degree, and he followed that high school coach there, who became the head coach of Tufts University football, and he became the backfield coach. Now, just a side note about Tufts University, TUFTS. It's a school that has a tremendous medical program. And also, the mascot is Jumbo, the elephant. That was their mascot. And believe it or not, Jumbo is stuffed and is in one of their halls. The other thing that was interesting about that I looked at Tufts University, the founder of Victoria's Secrets is also on the website. So anyway, in 1976, Jim decided he'd like to get back to California, so he became an assistant coach at Justin High. He then went to Calistoga High School as head coach from 1978 to 1985. He had one undefeated season in 1978, one of only 2 in the history of Calistoga High School. 2 league championships, 3 second-place league finishes. He had 1 North Coast section championship in 1978. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about that, because of who we also are inducting tonight is our beloved coach, George Davis. And I think if all of us could say this, we would say that he had a profound effect on everyone's life, and I know it had on Jim's, and that's why we were so lucky that he went into teaching and coaching. If you read the articles that Vince had written about the kids that played on the Dirty Dozen team that had, 14 players and then 13 and then 12, they lost 2 games. Can you imagine what a great job that he did with those kids? From Calistoga, he went to Rancho Cotati High, a head coach. 1 league championship and 2 second-place league finishes. So his total one-loss record as head coach was 82 wins, 34 defeats, and 1 tie. That's a 70% winning. That's marvelous. I mean, the guy was a good coach. Not bad for a bad boy. The other thing I wanted to say, because it's emotional, because it involves Jim and Dan. When I was back in the Mayo, getting my health back, I was in kind of rough shape in the beginning, and I'm in this little room, and Dan sends an email with the St. Helena. Jim had done the St. Helena High School record book. So I went down, Helen helped me down, and we found a computer, we printed it out, put it in the binder. At the time I was on steroids and a few other things, so I couldn't sleep anyway, so I read the whole damn thing. Can you imagine, I just couldn't imagine the work that he did. And I don't think we'd be here tonight if it wasn't for Jim Hunt and his hysterical love of history.
OCD.
And so, I called Jim from the little room at the Mayo Clinic. Emotional here. And told him I loved him. So I'd like to present for induction into the St. Helena High School Athletic Hall of Fame my friend and a great man, Jim.
It was very brief. I just want to thank the people, particularly Bob, for a very gracious introduction. My mom and dad, of course, for a good set of genes and the proper upbringing. I want to share one little story with you. I stayed home from school sick one day. It was a strep throat or something, I don't know. About 2:30 in the afternoon, my mother comes in and says, "What are you doing in bed?" I stayed home. She said, "Oh, you're going to practice." Got dressed, went to school, basketball practice. There we go. And it's really an honor to be in the hall with some of my boyhood friends, Walter, Tom, and with Coach Davis. It's a particular honor to be recognized in that way. And there's a lot of other people who deserve to be here as well and will be. But again, thank you.